Imagine your heart stops beating. Doctors do everything they can to bring you back. Most people never wake up, but some do. And when they do, some come back with memories they shouldn't remember. They describe witnessing their own bodies, watching doctors trying to save them, and seeing things they shouldn't have been able to see. Were they witnessing something beyond death? Or was it simply the final illusion of a dying brain? Today we're going to investigate the strongest evidence ever documented to answer one question. Has anyone ever found real evidence of life after death? For years, the explanation seems simple. When the brain begins to die, it creates one final illusion. But that explanation never ended the debate. For centuries, people have searched for the same answer. Scientists looked to the brain. Philosophers wondered if death was really the end. Religions offered their own explanations, and thousands of people claimed they had crossed the line between life and death. Each approach tells a different story, but sometimes their answers seem to overlap. So where does the strongest evidence actually lead? We'll start with the one place where every claim can be tested: science. In 1991, Pam Reynolds agreed to undergo one of the most dangerous brain surgeries ever attempted. The surgeons had only one chance to save her, and to do it, they would have to do something that sounded impossible. They would stop her heart, drain the blood from her brain, and cool her body to about 60 degrees Fahrenheit. For a short time, she had no heartbeat. She wasn't breathing, and almost no blood was flowing through her brain. According to the medical team, this was exactly what the surgery required. But when Pam woke up, she described watching her own operation from above. She saw her own body lying on the operating table while surgeons worked to save her. Later, she described the surgical instruments, conversations inside the operating room, and even parts of the procedure itself. If those details were accurate, how could she have known any of it? At first, many people assumed there had to be a simple explanation. Maybe she had heard the surgeons before losing consciousness. Maybe the sounds of the operation had somehow reached her. But the procedure had been designed to prevent exactly that. Small speakers were placed inside her ears, playing loud clicking sounds that allowed doctors to monitor her brain activity. Her eyes were taped shut. Her body was cooled until almost no blood was flowing through her brain. According to the medical team, this was the point when normal awareness should have been impossible. Yet the details she described would become one of the most debated parts of her story. But Pam's story wasn't unique. Another case surfaced, then another. One of the most remarkable came from Vicky Umipeg, who had been blind since birth. During a near-death experience, she later claimed she found herself outside her own body. For the first time in her life, she said she could see. Years later, another widely discussed case came from neurosurgeon Eben Alexander. A rare bacterial infection left him in a coma. When he recovered, he described an experience so vivid that it challenged everything he had believed about the brain. These weren't people from the same family, or the same country, or even the same beliefs. Most had never met. Yet their stories kept pointing in the same direction. So why did so many describe remarkably similar experiences? If you're enjoying these mysteries and want to explore more questions like this, make sure to like this video and subscribe. What made these stories so difficult to ignore wasn't just how many there were, it was how similar they sounded. Again and again, people described feeling completely separated from their bodies. Many said they watched doctors trying to save them from above. Then came a feeling almost impossible to describe, a peace unlike anything they had ever experienced. Some spoke of moving through darkness toward an intense light. Others described meeting loved ones who had already died. Many remembered reliving moments from their lives, not as memories, but as if they were experiencing them all over again. And just when it seemed they had reached the end, they were told the same thing. It wasn't their time. Then they woke up, and somehow, their stories all seemed to follow the same path. Naturally, scientists began searching for answers. One possibility was a lack of oxygen reaching the brain. Another suggested that the brain remained active for a few moments after the heart stopped. Some researchers wondered whether a powerful natural chemical called DMT, which the human body can produce in tiny amounts, could create vivid hallucinations. Each theory offered part of the puzzle, but none of them could explain every reported experience. So instead of continuing to debate it, scientists decided to test it. Researchers took the mystery into hospital rooms. Hidden images were placed on shelves near the ceiling. They could only be seen by someone looking down from above. If a person truly left their body during cardiac arrest, they should have been able to describe those images after waking up. Years passed. Patients were studied. The results finally came in. Some people reported vivid, near-death experiences. A few even described details of their resuscitation that investigators considered difficult to explain. But none identified the hidden images. The experiment didn't confirm that patients were actually seeing the room from above. It also didn't explain why some patients accurately described details of their own resuscitation. So after decades of research, has anyone found real evidence of life after death? At least, not evidence that has convinced the scientific community. And researchers still haven't found a single explanation that accounts for every reported experience. Some believed they had met Jesus. Others recognized loved ones who had already died. Many described an overwhelming being of light. Some could only speak of a presence they couldn't explain. Whatever happened during those moments, they rarely came back the same. Many said they no longer feared death. Others walked away from careers they once believed defined them. Some spent more time with their families. Others dedicated their lives to helping complete strangers. Whatever happened during those few extraordinary minutes, its impact lasted a lifetime. Maybe one day science will explain every detail behind near-death experiences, or maybe it won't. One question remains: what really happens when we die?